me Tiago. I don't know who's Marco. I just hit this lotto. I'm building up my car.
Sinapian ka naman ba ng katamaran? At gusto mo na lamang mag-Facebook, mag-share na wala kang natutunan? Ngayon, nagsiself-study ka, pinipilit mo mag-aral pero nag-stress ka lang? Dahil di mo alam kung tama ba ang iyong mga nalalaman.
Stop it. Get some help.
Ngayon, naghahanap ka ng video ng mga Indiano dahil quiz na tomorrow. Tama ang iyong pinuntahan. Magandang araw sa inyong lahat, mga kadami. Ako ito, si Shoy, at welcome back sa aming YouTube channel, ang Learn with Shoy.
So, hindi ko kasama ngayon si Shoy. Kasi nandun siya sa Antipolo, tapos nandito naman ako sa Caloocan. Pero don't worry, mga kapatid, magtutulungan pa rin kami ni Shoy sa vlog namin na Damn Shoy. So, good day everyone, good day mga kapatid. So, I will not make it long, I will just go straight to the point as to why we've created this vlog, Learn with Damn Shoy. So we've created this vlog because we want to share, we want to disseminate the knowledge that we've learned in our school. So for today, we will learn how to solve parabolic curves regarding unsymmetrical and symmetrical parabolic curves. And learning this kind of a lesson is crucial since we can apply it in the real realm of our lives. So what are we waiting for? Let's go learn with Damn Shoy. A vertical summit parabolic curve has its PI at station 14 plus 750 with elevation of 76.30 meters. The grade of the back tangent is 3.4% and forward tangent of negative 4.8%. If the length of the curve is 300 meters, compute the location of the vertical curve turning point from the PI and compute the elevation of the vertical curve turning point in meters. To compute the location of the vertical curve turning point from the PI, we will use the formula of the in locating the highest and lowest points of the curve, which is the S sub 1 equals G sub 1 times L over G sub 1 minus G sub 2, and then we will substitute the given values. S sub 1 is 124.39 meters from PC. So, if we plot this one sa illustration natin, we will plot in here, probably in here. Yan. So, dito yung S sub 1 natin, which is 124.39 meters. Pero ang sabi kasi, location of the vertical curve turning point from the PI. So, probably in here. It's probably in here. So, we will label it as X. para makuha natin yung value ng x, which is the location of the vertical curve turning point from the PI, yung half ng length of the curve, 300, yung half nun is 150, i-minus natin sa S sub 1, which is 124.39 meters. So, yung x natin is 25.61 meters from PI. So, this will be the answer of question A. Then, para makompute din natin yung elevation of the vertical curve turning point, gagamitin natin yung formula in getting the maximum offset. So, maximum offset is 3.075 meters. Then, using SPP, or the squared property of parabola, kukunin natin yung value ng y. So, probably this is ito yung y, tas h yang dito yung maximum offset. So, y over x squared equals h over L divided by 2 squared. Then, we already substitute the given values. So, the value of y is 2.115 meters. So, for that, we can now solve the elevation of vertical curve turning point. So, may yung elevation ng ano natin, PI is 76.30. So, 76.30 minus yung x natin, which is 25.61, times G1, which is 0.034, minus 2.115. So, yung elevation natin is 73.314 meters. And that's it.
A grade of negative 5% is followed by a grade of 1%. The grades intersection at station 10 plus 50 of elevation 374.50 meters. The change of grade is restricted to 0.4% in 20 meters. Compute the length of vertical parabolic sag curve. Compute how far is the lowest point of the curve from the PT. A grade of negative 5, yun yung G1 natin. G1 is equals to negative 5%, followed by the grade of 1%, yun yung magiging G2 natin. 1%. So, it is a sag curve. Then, nag-intersect daw sila sa station na 10,050 and has elevation of 374.50 meters. Then, the change of grade is restricted to 0.4%. Yan. So, yung una natin hinahanap ay A, the length of curve. Magagamit natin yan. Ang formulang pwede natin gamitin is yung rate of change. Kasi may rate of change tayo. Ang formula na yun ay rate of change is equals to G2 minus G1 all over N. Rate of change to your restricted 0.4 is equals to G2 0 or 1 plus 5 N, then calculate natin. N is equals to 15. Tapos i-substitute natin siya sa formula na L is equals to 20 times 15. Ang L natin ay magiging 300 meters. So, ayun yung hinahanap natin sa number 1. Yan. Yan. So, for letter B naman, hinahanap natin is how far is the lowest point of the curve from the PT. So, dahil lowest point nga siya, lowest point of curve, ang gagamitin natin formula is yung S2 G2L all over G2 minus G1 is equals to G2 0.01 times L is 300 na nakuha natin all over G2 0.01 plus negative tapos negative magiging positive plus 0.05 S2 the lowest point of curve from the PT is equals to 50 meters from PT. Yan yung hinahanap natin sa atin. A vertical highway is to pass through a railway at grade. The crossing must be at station 4 plus 210 and at elevation of 220.82 meter. The initial grade of the highway is 2% and meets at negative 3% grade at station 4 plus 135 at an elevation of 223.38 meters. The rate of change must not be exceed 2%. Compute the following. 1. What length of curve will meet this condition? 2. What is stationing at the highest point of the curve? So, it's a vertical highway curve. The initial grade of highway is 2%, positive 2%, which is yung G1 natin, positive, and meets at negative 3%, which is yung magiging G2 natin, negative 3%. So, it is a summit curve. Na meet daw sila sa station na 4,135 na may elevation na 223.38 meters. Ito yung length niya. Ito yung kabuoang length. Then, hatiin natin siya. Para sa back and sa front. Ito yung half ng length. Then, sabi dito, the crossing must be at station 4,210. So, dito yun. Division up 220.82 meters. And stations, yan. Number station na 4,210. 4,210. Tira. Half length to. Ito yung half length niya. Pero dito, may 75. Saan ang galing yung 75? Is minus natin yung dalawang station, which is yung 210 minus 135. Ang kakalabasan is 75. Then, dahil kalahati na nga ito yung kalahati ng length, ang mangyayari dito, yung magiging ano nito is 2/2 minus 75. Dito tayo sa A. What length of curve? What length of curve will meet this condition? Conditions. So, yun nahanap sa number. So, isa natin siya sa pagkuha ng elevation. Elevation of A is equal na siya dun sa elevation na nandito, ito, which is in 223.38 minus yung G2 magiging siya 0.03 times yung 75, yung yung minus nito at nito. Ito pala yung y. Then, ang kakalabas nito, elevation of A is equals to 221.30 meters. So, pagbuha naman natin ng y, or yung slope of parabola, is equals to elevation of A, which is yung 221.30 minus dun sa point dito sa y, minus 220.82. Y is equals to 0.31. So, di pa natatapos dun. Hanapin naman natin yung tuloy na next step is H is equals to 1/8, which is yung maximum offset niya, times, or H is equals to L/8 times G 1 minus G2, which is yung maximum offset niya, is equals to L/8 G1 0.02 plus negative positive 0.03. H is equals to 0.007 2625L. So, dito na tatapos yan. Gagawin naman natin is yung vertical offset proportional to square of distance from the point of tangency, which is yung formula niya ay h over 2 L over 2 squared is equals to y, then ito L over 2 minus 75 squared, then substitute natin, magiging 4 times ito, pass natin, h is 0.00625 L all over M2 kasi L squared over ay equals to 1 is yung 0.31 over, then copy L over 2 minus 75 squared, then times na natin, ito magiging 0.025 over L. Bakit L? Kasi cancel continue sa taas, cancel, is equals to 0.31 L over 2 minus 75 squared. So next is then cross multiply natin sila. Ito na lang natin gawin. Ay, ito na lang para dugtong L all over 2 ay 75 over squared pala is equals to 12.4 L. Saan siya nakuha? I-cross multiply lang to, then yan, ang sagot niya is 12.4, then i-times natin yung squared, labas na natin yan, L squared over 4 75N plus 5, 6, 25 plus 2, 12.4N. Next is L2. L squared is equals to 349.6N. Saan natin ito nakuha? 75 plus 12.4 kasi pare silang may L, then times 4 plus ito naman times mo lang din siya equals to 22,500 equals to 0. Then makakuha na natin yung L. L is equals to 264.55. So yan, pero hindi pa din yun pagtapos. Kanina pala, di ba sa question, may nabanggit nila na rate of change must not exceed of exceed 2%. Yun yung sinasabi. Kaya ang gagawin natin, yung rate of change formula, rate of change is equals to G1 minus G2 all over L is equals to, substitute natin, 2 minus negative 3 all over L. Ito, nakuha na. ito, nakuha natin kanina. Ito, yung nakuha natin kanina. Which is 64.5. Divide lang natin sila. Ang sagot ay magiging 0.0189. Times natin siya ng 100. Ang maging sagot is weight is 1.89%. So, hindi siya nag-exceed sa 2%, kaya ito ay okay. Ito na yung sagot natin. Ito na yung ating sa A. Sa 2 naman, for 2, pasensya na, napakagulo. For B, ang hinahanap din ay highest point of curve, stationing of highest point of curve. So, ito ay summit. Kaya, ang gagamitin natin formula is S1 is equals to G1 times length over G1 minus G2. Is equals natin, substitute. Ay, i-ano na natin yung magitin 0.02 times L to 64.55 over 0.02 plus 0.03. Ang S1 natin ay magiging 0.5.82 from PC. Then, sa station of highest point, yan natin siya, is equals to 4 plus 135 or 4,135 is stationing minus L over 2, 264.55 over 2 plus yung stationing of highest point of curve, which is yung 105.82. Ang magiging sagot natin is stationing of highest curve by highest point is equals to 4 plus 108.545. Ayan yung ating sagot sa pangalawa. And that will be all. Thank you.
I am the one, the way your son don't need.
A negative 3% grade meets a positive 5% grade near an underpass. In order to maintain the minimum clearance allowed under the bridge and at the same time introduce a vertical transition curve in the grade line, it is necessary to use a curve that lies 200 meters on one side of the vertex of the straight grade and 100 meters on the other. The station at the beginning of the curve, which is in the 200-meter side, is 10 plus 00 and its elevation is 228 meters. So, determine the elevation at station 10 plus 040 and determine the stationing of the lowest point of the curve if the uphill edge of the underside of the bridge is at station 10 plus 220. We have now our illustration and it is a sag curve. Kasi sa problem, it says that a negative 3% grade meets a positive 5% grade near an underpass. So the first question is to determine the elevation of station 10 plus 040. Pero bago natin makuha yung elevation nito, we must firstly find the value of h. So we will use this formula. So we now have the value of h, which is 2.67 meters. Next to perform is to find the value of y sub 1 using SPP. So, but, L sub 1 squared lang yan. Di ba dapat L over 2 squared? Char. L sub 1 yung ginamit natin instead of L over 2 squared. Kasi, y sub 1 yung hinahanap natin. Which is, dito lang sa side na ito. Yan. And then, we already substituted the given values. So, nagtatanong ko naman, ba't 40? Saan galing yan 40? Okay, tingnan natin sa plinlot natin dito sa illustration. Di ba yung hinahanap is elevation ng station 10 plus 040. Tapos, nag-start yung stationing sa point of curvature station 10 plus 000. So, ang ginawa ko is, since 10 plus 040, yung dito station, yun nga dito. Nakikita nyo naman. So, yung na-add up lang siya ng 40 since nag-start nga sa 10 plus 00. Ayun, nagigets ba? So, moving on, the value of y sub 1 is 0.107 meters. And now, we can solve for the elevation of station 10 plus 040. So, we will have the station at the elevation of PC, which is 228 meters, minus 0.03 times 40, plus the y sub 1, which is 0.107 meters. So, the elevation of station 10 plus 040, which is 226.907 meters. Next question is to determine the stationing of the lowest point of the curve if the uphill edge of the underside of the bridge is at station 10 plus 220 and at elevation 229.206 meters. So, dito yan, no? Ayan, plinot ko na. Dito yung station 10 plus 220 and elevation 229.206 meters. So, since hinahanap yung lowest point of the curve, dito yon. Yung stationing ng lowest point of the curve, ito yung hinahanap. Lowest point of the curve. Yan. Yung station neto. So, firstly, we will use this formula, L sub 1 times G sub 1 over 2 under some certain conditions. This one. Ayan. Kapag daw, yung result ng L sub 1 times G sub 1 over 2 is greater than H, ito yung gagamitin natin. S equals G sub 2 times L sub 2 squared over 2H. Yan yung condition number 1. Whereas sa condition number 2, if the L sub 1 times G sub 1 over 2 is less than H, yung value ng H natin, na-solve naman natin, which is 2.67, yung gagamitin nating formula is S equals G sub 1 times L sub 1 squared over 2 times h. So, we will now substitute the given values using this formula. Three is greater than 2.67, so we can now conclude that this formula S equals G sub 2 times L sub 2 squared over 2H. So the value of our S is 93.63 meters. So, masosolve natin yung lowest point of the curve. So, station PI minus S. So, station ng PI is 10 plus 200 minus S, which is 93.63 meters. So, the station of lowest point of the curve is 10 plus 106.37. And that's it.
A forward tangent having a slope of negative 4% intersects the back tangent with a slope of 6.5% at point B. At station 4310 with elevation of 240 meters, the curve will pass through point A with elevation of 238 meters at station 4285. The length of curve is 60 meters on the side of the back tangent. Determine the length of curve on the side of the forward tangent. Determine the stationing of the highest point. Sabi, a forward tangent having a slope of negative 4% and a back tangent with a slope of 6.5%. With a station of 4,310 and elevation of 240 meters. So, the curve will pass through point A. And the back tangent has a side of 60 meters, which is yung L1, yung L2 is yung hinahanap. So, sabi yung dun sa curve is may point siya na A na with a station of 4,285 and has an elevation of 238 meters. So, yan. Pwede natin makuha yung L2 sa formula na H is equals to L1 times L2 times G1 minus G2 over 2 times L1 minus plus L2. So, yun. Pwede natin makuha yung L2 dahil meron naman tayo L1. So, dito sa Y1, which is in formula is Y1 over X squared is equals to H over L1 squared. So, yun dito, pwede natin siya makuha kasi may elevation tayo dito sa stationing. So, ito pwede natin tawagin na A prime. A times yung sa taas 310 minus 285 is 25 meters. And yung dito sa hypotenuse is G1. So, pwede na, makakonclude natin yung A is equals to 25 times 6.5 is equals to 1.625 meters. So, yan, pwede na natin makuha yung maging elevation pala muna tayo ng A prime. Elevation of A prime is equals to 240 minus yung E, which is 1.625, is equals to 238.375. So, dito, pause. Sa Y1, pwede natin siya makuha kasi may elevation of A prime naman tayo at may elevation of A naman tayo. Elevation of A prime equals to 238.35 minus 238 is equals to 0.375 meters. So, pwede na natin kuhain yung H. Ay, bilangan pa pala natin ng X1. X1 is equals to 60 minus yung L1 minus 25 is equals to 35 meters. So, pwede na natin makuha yung H with the formula of L1 times Y1 over X1 equals to 60 squared pala to, squared times 0.375 over 35 squared. Squared din pala to. Ang H natin is equals to 1.102 meters. So, yun. Pwede na nating i-substitute yung H dun sa naunang formula natin, which is yung ito. Substitute na natin siya. H is equals to 1.102 is equals to L1, which is yung 60 times L2 times 6.5 rather, minus 4 over 2 times 60 yung L1 plus L2. So, kapag tignan natin to sa calculator, ang lalabas ay L2 is equals to 32.285 meters. So, yan. Ito na yung hinahanap sa number 1 na tanong. Next, ito yung A. B naman tayo. So, di ba yung sa H natin is equals to 1.102 meters. Samantalang yung G naman natin, G1 times L1 over 2, which is yung 6.5 times 60 over 2, ay mag-i-equal siya sa 1.95. So, yung conclude nun, since less than yung G1 times L1 over 2, ang gagamitin natin is yung G2 times L2 over 2H. Then, substitute natin 4 times yung L2 is yung 32.285 all over 2 times yung h, which is 1.102. Then, calculate natin ng S is equals to 18.917. Ito yung yung stationing, yung 18.917 is yung stationing of highest point na hinahanap sa number. Thank you.
An unsymmetrical parabolic curve is 120 meters on the left side. The forward and backward tangents have grades of -4% and +7%, meeting at 6 plus 300 elevation 330 meters. The curve should pass through point P on the curve that will have an elevation of 325.14 at station 6 plus 240. Determine the length of the other side of the curve and determine the station and elevation of the highest point of the curve. So, we now have our illustration, and for the first question is to determine the length of the other side of the curve, which is the L sub 2. But first, we need to find the value of y. So, here's a clearer view. Much easier for you to understand what is going on in here. Then we have labeled it as R, which is the value of R is, since the G1 is 0.07, we will multiply it by the half of L sub 1, which is 60, right? So the result is 4.2 meters. And for us to get the value of Y, we just have to use the elevation of PI, which is 330 minus the elevation of P, which is 325.14 minus the value of R, 4.2. And now, the Y is 0.66 meters. Next is to get or solve the value of H. So, we will use this formula and substitute the given values. We now have the value of H, which is 2.64 meters. And since nakuha na natin yung value ng H, ito yung gagamitin nating formula since may value na din yung G sub 1, G sub 2, tas L sub 1. So, we will just substitute the given values. Our L sub 2 is 80 meters. So, for the next question is to determine the station and elevation of the highest point of the curve. So, we must firstly use this formula, L sub 1 times G sub 1 over 2. And since the result of L sub 1 times G sub 1 times 2 is 4.2, which is greater than the value of H, 2.64, we will now then use this formula from PT. G sub 2 times L sub 2 squared over 2H. Okay, the result is 48.485 meters from PT. 48.485 meters from PT. So, dito yon ha, we just say yan dyan. It's 48.485 meters. So, saan galing tong 31.1515? So, since yung L sub 2 natin, na-solve na natin kanina, 80 meters. Minus ko lang dito sa 48.485, kaya naging yung measurement sa side na to is 31.515 meters. By this, we can now solve the stationing of the highest point of the curve, which is station PI plus 31.515. So station S, or the stationing of the highest point of the curve, is 6 plus 331.515. So ito na yung sagot natin. So sa illustration natin, I labeled this part as C and D. So bakit nilagyan natin yan dyan? Kasi gagamitin natin yung value ng C at D sa pagdetermine ng elevation sa highest point of the curve. So here it goes. Para makuha natin yung value ng C, I've come up with this solution. C over 48.485 squared equals 2.64, which is yung value ng H natin yan kanina, yung sinolve natin. Tapos, the L sub 2 squared, 80. Yan. So, the value of C is 0.970 meters. And for the D, I just multiplied the 31.515 and the G sub 2, which is 4%. So our D is 1.261 meters. Okay, we can now solve the elevation of S. So elevation PI minus D minus C. So 330 minus 1.261 minus 0.970. So elevation of S is 327.769 meters. And that's it.
Oh my God!
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube channel, Learn with Damshay. And don't forget to click the notification bell.